The Secret Gnostic Book. Introduction. For centuries, whispers of a hidden wisdom have echoed through time, an ancient knowledge so powerful that it was silenced, condemned, and nearly erased from history. The Gnostics, seekers of divine truth, believed that the material world was a prison, a veil of illusion cast by a false creator. They claimed that salvation did not come through blind faith or obedience, but through a secret inner knowledge, the Gnosis, that could free the soul from the chains of deception. But what if their forbidden teachings held a truth too dangerous for the ruling powers of their time? What if their lost books contained insights into human existence, the cosmos, and the nature of reality that could challenge everything we have been taught? Suppressed by the early church, hunted as heretics, and forced into the shadows, the Gnostic sacred texts were thought to be lost forever, until a remarkable discovery in the sands of Egypt shattered the silence. In 1945, the Nag Hammadi Library emerged from its hiding place, revealing a collection of writings that many believe contain the key to a lost spiritual revolution. Were the Gnostics the keepers of an ancient forbidden truth? And if so, why was it so desperately buried? The answers may shake the very foundations of history, faith, and the reality we think we know. This book is not just a historical account of Gnosticism. It is an invitation, an opportunity to question, reflect, and explore your own relationship with knowledge, truth, and power. In a world where information is everywhere but true wisdom is rare, Gnosticism reminds us of a crucial truth. Real knowledge isn't found in books or doctrines, but in personal experience. This journey will take you through the core ideas of Gnosticism, from the role of the Demiurge and the Archons to the path of Gnosis itself. However, it is not about blindly accepting these teachings. Instead, it is about using them as tools to expand your awareness, question reality, and seek your own answers. But be warned, the path to forbidden knowledge is not easy. It requires courage to face uncomfortable truths, patience to unravel deep mysteries, and an open mind to accept that not all answers are clear. If you choose to continue this journey, I promise you one thing. You will find something far more valuable than simple answers. You will discover a new way of seeing the world and your place within it. Chapter 1. The Origin of Forbidden Knowledge. Not all knowledge is meant to be shared. Some truths are hidden, silenced, erased, and buried beneath centuries of fear and control. Gnosticism was one of the most dangerous ideas of its time, not because it promoted violence or destruction, but because it challenged everything people were told to believe. To understand the origins of this forbidden knowledge, we must journey back to a time when civilizations clashed, ideas intermingled, and the battle between truth and illusion began. Gnosticism did not appear in isolation. It was born at the crossroads of history and shaped by Egyptian mysticism, Persian dualism, Jewish theology, and Greek philosophy. The Hellenistic period, a time of unprecedented cultural exchange, allowed ideas to flow freely. The conquests of Alexander the Great connected vast regions, bringing together diverse spiritual traditions. In this melting pot, Gnosticism emerged as a radical interpretation of the universe and the human condition. Unlike the dominant religions that saw the world as a divine creation, the Gnostics viewed it as a prison, a realm of illusion controlled by a deceptive force. Most religions of the time worshipped an all-powerful, benevolent God, but the Gnostics told a different story. They claimed that the universe was not the work of a supreme, loving deity, but of a flawed, tyrannical being known as the Demiurge. This lower god, along with his servants, the Archons, had trapped human souls in a false reality, keeping them ignorant of their divine origins. This belief was dangerous. If the material world was a deception, then the institutions that controlled it, governments, religious authorities, and rulers, were part of the lie. As Christianity rose to power in the 2nd century AD, Gnostic ideas became a serious threat to the emerging church. Figures like Basilides sought to integrate Gnostic teachings with the story of Christ, interpreting his life and resurrection as a symbolic journey of the soul escaping from the illusion of matter. But the early church rejected these interpretations. Gnosticism undermined the church's authority, challenged the idea of a single benevolent creator and emphasized personal enlightenment gnosis over institutional faith. Many of its teachings were only accessible to a select group of initiates, which fueled suspicion and fear. As Christianity gained influence, especially after Constantine made it the official religion of Rome, Gnosticism was marked for eradication. The war against it wasn't just ideological, it was physical. Gnostic texts were burned, banned, or buried. Followers were persecuted, excommunicated, or silenced. By the time of the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, official church doctrine was established, and Gnostic writings, such as the Gospel of Thomas and the Apocryphon of John, were cast aside as heresy. Yet knowledge is not so easily destroyed. Though most Gnostic scriptures were lost, some were hidden. For centuries, Gnostic teachings survived in the shadows. In medieval Europe, groups like the Cathars revived Gnostic principles, believing that the material world was an evil creation. These secret traditions influenced alchemy, Renaissance philosophy, and even Enlightenment thought. But it wasn't until 1945 that a true revelation occurred. That year, a farmer in Egypt discovered the Nag Hammadi manuscripts, a collection of Gnostic texts that had been hidden for nearly 2,000 years. These texts revealed a lost vision of the universe, one that questioned authority, defied dogma, and empowered individuals to seek their own truth. Gnosticism may be ancient, but its message is more relevant than ever. We still live in a world where information is controlled, narratives are shaped, and the search for truth is met with resistance. Studying Gnosticism isn't just about history. It's about breaking free from imposed beliefs and expanding your own consciousness. So, as we continue this journey, remember, forbidden knowledge isn't just a relic of the past. It's a living flame, a force that continues to illuminate the path to truth. Take a deep breath, open your mind, prepare to uncover the mysteries at the heart of Gnosticism. Chapter 2. The Chained Cosmos, a universe of illusion and deception. The universe, according to the Gnostic vision, is not a place of divine perfection, nor the loving creation of an almighty God, but a realm of illusion and darkness designed to keep captive the divine sparks within each human being. This radical conception of the cosmos lies at the very heart of Gnosticism, representing a complete break from traditional narratives about creation and the nature of reality. For the Gnostics, the material world in which we live is not the direct manifestation of the true transcendental God, but a prison, carefully constructed by a lower entity known as the Demiurge. Along with his servants, the Archons, this being governs a world of deception, ensuring that humanity remains blind to its true origins. Through this cosmology, the Gnostics sought to explain the ever-present suffering, injustice, and confusion of human existence while offering a path to spiritual liberation, one that begins with understanding our true nature and breaking free from the illusions that bind us. At the center of Gnostic cosmology stands the concept of the Demiurge, a complex and controversial figure that challenges conventional notions of divinity. According to Gnostic texts, the Demiurge is not the supreme creator of the universe, but an inferior entity that arose either accidentally or through a mistake within the higher realms of existence. In his arrogance and ignorance, he proclaimed himself the ultimate God and proceeded to shape the material world, not out of wisdom or love, but as a reflection of his own limitations. Unlike the true divine source, which is beyond comprehension and resides in infinite light, the Demiurge lacks true knowledge and exists in separation from the One. The Gnostics portrayed him as an ambiguous force, sometimes malevolent, other times merely ignorant, but always as a being who keeps humanity trapped within the cycle of matter and illusion. This subversive idea not only challenged religious orthodoxy, but also raised profound questions about the nature of power and authority, both in the spiritual realm and in human society. Alongside the Demiurge, the Gnostics introduced the figure of the Archons, secondary entities who act as enforcers of the material world's prison. These beings are described as invisible rulers, forces that manipulate human perception, emotions, and decisions to ensure that souls remain trapped in a false reality. The Archons do not merely exist as mythological figures, but serve as profound symbolic representations of power structures, social norms, and limiting beliefs that shape human behavior. They operate through fear, distraction, and deception, reinforcing the illusion of the material cosmos and keeping individuals disconnected from their divine essence. The mechanisms of control they impose, whether in the form of religious dogma, political oppression, or psychological conditioning, are designed to prevent the awakening of true knowledge. For the Gnostics, recognizing the influence of the Archons is the first step toward liberation. Only by identifying the chains that bind us can we begin to loosen them through self-awareness and introspection. The fundamental duality between spirit and matter is another core principle of Gnostic cosmology, one that defines the human experience in its entirety. The human soul, or pneuma, is seen as a divine spark that originates from the transcendental realm of the One, but has been imprisoned within the physical body, a creation of the Demiurge and his Archons. This contrast between the luminous, eternal nature of spirit and the dense, corruptible nature of matter is central to the Gnostic worldview. The body, along with its desires, distractions, and suffering, is perceived as a tool used by the Archons to keep humanity enslaved, preventing individuals from recognizing their true nature. However, this perspective does not promote an absolute rejection of the body or of earthly life. Instead, it serves as an invitation to transcend the limitations imposed by the material world and remember our true origins. For the Gnostics, the goal of human existence is not simply to survive or to thrive in this physical realm, but to awaken to the reality of our divine condition and embark on the journey back to the source. This journey, known as spiritual ascension, is one of the most transformative and inspiring aspects of Gnostic belief. According to their teachings, each human being has the potential to free themselves from the chains of the material world and reunite with the One, the primordial source of all existence. However, this process is neither automatic nor easy. It requires conscious, deliberate effort. One must unravel the illusions that keep the soul imprisoned and cultivate Gnosis, a direct and personal knowledge of the truth. Unlike conventional faith, which relies on obedience to external authorities, Gnostic knowledge is acquired through inner experience and revelation. The path to liberation involves practices such as meditation, contemplation, the study of sacred texts, and participation in symbolic rituals, each designed to help individuals remember their divine origins and recognize the material world for what it truly is, a temporary prison that can be transcended. Although Gnostic cosmology may seem abstract or overwhelming at first glance, its significance reaches far beyond the historical context in which it emerged. In the modern world, where power structures, dominant narratives, and material distractions continue to shape human existence in profound ways, Gnostic ideas provide a powerful lens through which to examine our relationship with reality. By recognizing the influence of the Demiurge and the Archons in daily life, we can begin to question the beliefs and patterns that keep us trapped in cycles of suffering and disconnection. At the same time, by embracing the duality between spirit and matter, we can learn to honor both our physical existence and our spiritual essence, seeking a balance that allows us to live with greater awareness and purpose. As we move forward into the following chapters, remember that cosmology is not merely an ancient system of thought. It is a living tool, one that can illuminate the mysteries of the universe and guide us toward our own path to liberation. Take a deep breath, open your mind, and prepare to explore the depths of this transformative vision of the cosmos. Chapter 3. The Illusion of Reality: How the Material World Traps the Soul. At the core of Gnostic wisdom lies a disturbing yet liberating truth. The world we perceive with our senses is not real. It is a grand illusion, a meticulously crafted deception designed to keep us blind to our divine origin. For the Gnostics, the material cosmos is not a neutral space, but a prison, woven from shadows and half-truths, to trap the soul in an endless cycle of ignorance and suffering. But if this world is an illusion, who built it and why are we here? In the Gnostic tradition, the creator of this false world is not a benevolent god, but the Demiurge, a lower, ignorant being who believes himself to be the supreme ruler. He is not the source of true divinity, but a counterfeit god, a blind craftsman shaping a world of imperfection and suffering. His realm is governed by laws that bind rather than liberate, trapping the soul in layers of deception so profound that few ever question their reality. The Demiurge does not act alone. He is surrounded by the Archons, his enforcers, who manipulate human perception through fear, desire, and false knowledge. They weave illusions so intricate that we mistake them for truth, keeping us fixated on material pleasures, social structures, and transient concerns, ensuring we never seek beyond what is presented to us. For the Gnostics, the material world is not just a physical prison, but a mental and spiritual labyrinth. Every aspect of human experience, from politics to religion, from pleasure to suffering, is part of a carefully crafted illusion meant to keep us distracted. We believe our world is stable, that life follows a predictable order, yet everything we cling to is fleeting, our bodies, possessions, and even our identities. We think we make our own choices, yet most of our decisions are shaped by external forces, social conditioning, biological drives, and subconscious fears implanted by the Archons. We trust in science, philosophy, and even spiritual teachings, yet most of what we accept as truth is filtered through the same system designed to keep us blind. The soul, in its essence, does not belong to this world. It is an emanation of the divine, temporarily exiled in a realm of shadows. But if this is true, then why do we not remember our true origin? One of the most insidious deceptions of the material world is the veil of forgetfulness. From birth, we are conditioned to believe that we are nothing more than our bodies, our thoughts, our emotions. The soul's divine memory is buried beneath layers of conditioning, making it almost impossible to recall the light from which we came. The Archons ensure that we remain spiritually asleep. They cultivate distractions, ensuring that even those who seek answers find only distorted versions of the truth, dogmatic religions, superficial spirituality, or nihilistic philosophies that strip life of meaning. But despite their power, the illusion is not perfect. Within each of us remains a spark of divine light, a voice that whispers in moments of silence that something is not right, that there is more to existence than what we have been told. If the world is an illusion, how do we escape it? The Gnostics taught that the first step to liberation is Gnosis, direct knowledge of the truth, unfiltered by external authorities. Gnosis is not mere belief nor intellectual understanding. It is a deep, intuitive recognition of reality as it truly is, a realization so profound that it shatters the illusions that once bound us. The process of awakening begins with questioning everything, every belief, every assumption, every truth we have been taught must be examined. What if everything we accepted as reality was simply part of the prison? It requires detachment from the false self, the ego, the persona we identify with, another layer of deception. True awakening demands peeling away these false identities to uncover the luminous soul beneath. The Archons operate through fear, desire, and distraction. Recognizing their influence in our thoughts and emotions is key to breaking free. The search for truth must ultimately be internal. No external system can provide true liberation. Books, teachers, and traditions may point the way, but the journey must be walked alone, guided by the divine spark within. The Gnostics compared the process of liberation to waking from a deep sleep. Just as a dream feels real until we awaken, so too does the material world lose its grip when we begin to see it for what it is. To awaken is to remember, to reclaim the lost knowledge of our divine origin, and to recognize the illusions that once held us captive. The path is not easy. It requires a willingness to abandon comforting falsehoods, to face the unsettling truth that the world we knew was never real. But beyond the fear, beyond the disillusionment, lies something far greater: freedom. For those who dare to see beyond the veil, the reward is profound. The soul, once trapped in the illusion, begins its ascent back to the divine. The prison dissolves, the illusions fade, and what remains is the only thing that was ever real: the eternal light of the One. The choice is ours: remain asleep in the dream or awaken to the truth. Chapter 4. The Demiurge, the architect of illusion and the guardian of the false reality. Beneath the surface of existence, beyond the veil of the tangible, lies a cosmic deception, one so deeply embedded in our perception that we mistake it for reality itself. At the heart of Gnostic thought stands the Demiurge, a figure both enigmatic and unsettling. Far from the benevolent creator of mainstream religious narratives, this being is an impostor, a misguided architect who fashioned the material world not as an act of divine love but as a consequence of error, arrogance, and ignorance. Unlike the omniscient God of traditional faiths, the Demiurge is not supreme, nor is he the source of all things. Rather, he is a fragmented echo of divinity, a flawed craftsman who, in his blindness, believes himself to be the ultimate authority. The cosmos he shaped is not a sanctuary of spiritual enlightenment, but a prison of illusion, a carefully designed labyrinth meant to entrap the soul, obscure the truth, and perpetuate suffering. But how did such a being come to exist? Gnostic traditions tell us that the Demiurge was not created through divine will, but was the unintended byproduct of a disruption in the higher realms. A flaw in the process of cosmic emanation gave rise to this imperfect force, severed from the true source of wisdom. Cut off from the infinite light, the Demiurge mistook his own limited awareness for absolute truth, and in an act of supreme delusion declared himself God. In his ignorance, he constructed the physical universe, not as a mirror of divine perfection, but as a distorted imitation. Every law of time and space, every hierarchy of power, every belief system that binds the human mind, these are the bars of a spiritual cage. We are not merely inhabitants of this world, but captives within it, conditioned to mistake illusion for reality. To ensure the soul remains shackled, the Demiurge employs his enforcers, the Archons, malevolent sentinels who manipulate human perception. They orchestrate the rules of existence, embedding control mechanisms into every aspect of life, from governments and institutions to emotions and desires, from dogmas to social norms. They thrive on fear, on division, on the ego's relentless need for control. The more we attach ourselves to this false reality, the more we feed the Demiurge's dominion. Yet, liberation is possible. The Gnostic path is not one of passive submission but of awakening, a rebellion against the great deception. To escape the Demiurge's grip, one must embrace Gnosis, the direct experience of truth that transcends all imposed narratives. This is not knowledge that can be taught, nor wisdom found in books. It is a realization that erupts from within, shattering the illusions that have kept the soul in chains. But the battle is not only external. The Demiurge is not merely an outside force, he is also within us. He is the voice of the ego, the part of us that craves dominance, that resists surrender, that thrives on illusion. Every time we identify with our fears, our vanities, our false sense of self, we unknowingly serve his purpose. To break free, we must face our own inner Demiurge, dismantle the illusions we have internalized, and reclaim our connection to the infinite. The Demiurge is not an omnipotent god. He is a pretender, a shadow cast by misunderstanding. His control is maintained only as long as we believe in his world, only as long as we accept the false narratives imposed upon us. The moment we awaken, the moment we see through the illusion, his power begins to fade. So the question is not whether the Demiurge exists, but whether we are willing to confront him, in the world, in our beliefs, and within ourselves. The choice is ours: remain prisoners of the grand deception or step beyond the veil and reclaim our forgotten divinity. Chapter 5. The Archons, Architects of Control. In the intricate framework of Gnostic cosmology, the Archons are not merely mythic figures, but the very forces that govern, restrict, and manipulate the human experience. Acting as the enforcers of the Demiurge, they serve as both jailers of the soul and engineers of illusion, ensuring that humanity remains bound to a reality carefully crafted to maintain control. Their presence is not just spiritual or metaphysical. It manifests in the power structures, belief systems, and subconscious fears that shape our world. To the Gnostics, understanding the true nature of the Archons is a fundamental step in breaking free from their grasp. Who are they? How do they operate? And most importantly, how can we overcome their influence and move toward liberation? The Archons are emanations of the Demiurge, created to govern different aspects of the physical and psychological cosmos. Unlike their master, they do not claim divinity, but they act as gatekeepers of the illusion, ensuring that divine sparks, human souls, remain trapped in the cycle of material existence. Each Archon is linked to a particular domain: the laws of physics, time and space, emotions, desires, social hierarchies, and institutional power. In this way, they are not abstract beings, but forces embedded within our daily lives. Some govern fear and suffering, others manipulate desire and attachment, while others operate through political and religious institutions, reinforcing a narrative that keeps the soul distracted and misled. Their influence is subtle but pervasive, shaping our perception of reality and keeping us focused on external validation, material accumulation, and false identities. They thrive on ignorance, as their power depends on keeping humanity unaware of its own divine origin. Through their manipulation of perception, emotion, and belief, the Archons exert control over the human experience. Their greatest weapons are ego, desire, and terror. Fear is the best tool for controlling people because it keeps them immobile, compliant, and unwilling to challenge the status quo. These fears, fear of dying, fear of failing, and fear of the unknown, are all delusions meant to keep us bound to the physical world. Comparatively, desire enslaves through enjoyment rather than repression. It makes sure people stay sidetracked from a more profound spiritual awareness by encouraging them to look for fulfillment in transient pleasures and material possessions. The most pernicious Archon of all, however, is the ego, which perpetuates the idea that we are distinct, separated entities. The ego makes sure we don't see how everything is interconnected by feeding on comparison, conflict, and the craving for supremacy. These psychological forces are controlled by the Archons, who keep people bound to patterns of ignorance, misery, and limitation by trapping human consciousness under the illusion of duality. Beyond individual perception, the Archons also infiltrate and control society itself. They shape religious institutions, political systems, economic structures, and cultural norms, ensuring that conformity, hierarchy, and submission remain deeply ingrained in human behavior. Many religious institutions, rather than offering enlightenment, serve as tools of the Archons, promoting blind obedience to external gods rather than encouraging direct spiritual experience. Political and economic systems maintain the illusion of progress and prosperity, but their underlying function is to keep individuals dependent on material success, measuring their worth through external validation rather than inner awakening. From childhood, cultural conditioning shapes human consciousness, teaching people to accept limitations, conform to expectations, and silence their intuition. This conditioning ensures that they remain compliant within the archontic system, mistaking their servitude for free will. To resist the Archons, one must question these structures, recognize their influence, and seek paths that honor authentic spiritual awakening rather than blind conformity. While the Archons appear as external oppressors, their greatest stronghold is within the human mind. They exist as the manifestation of our own limitations, fears, and conditioned beliefs. The Archon of ego, for example, manifests as the voice that seeks dominance, control, and separation, believing it is the center of existence and fearing anything that threatens its constructed reality. Every attachment, every insecurity, every conditioned belief is an echo of the archontic influence within us. To break free, one must not only resist external control, but dismantle the internal barriers that keep the soul trapped in illusion. This is a battle not against an external force, but against the illusions we have accepted as truth. Despite their immense power, the Archons are not invincible. According to Gnostic wisdom, their influence can be shattered through Gnosis, the direct experiential knowledge of the truth. Unlike faith or doctrine, Gnosis is not received from external authority, but awakened from within. It is the light that dissolves illusion, the key that unlocks the prison. This path to liberation requires deep introspection, identifying and confronting the false beliefs that keep us bound. Through meditation and contemplation, one can begin to deconstruct the illusions of ego and reality, stepping beyond the limitations imposed by the archontic system. Symbolic and spiritual rituals, often misunderstood as mere tradition, serve as reminders of our true divine nature, awakening the dormant awareness of the soul's origin beyond the material cosmos. Gnosis is not about escape, it is about transcendence. It allows one to see beyond the veil, to recognize the world for what it is, and to reclaim the lost connection with the infinite. The figure of the Archons challenges us to see beyond the surface of reality and to recognize the invisible chains that bind us. In a world dominated by fear, deception, and distraction, their influence remains as strong as ever. Yet armed with awareness, we can begin to dismantle their power. By recognizing their presence in our thoughts, our emotions, and our institutions, we can break the cycle of suffering and disconnection. The Archons are not omnipotent. They only thrive in the shadows. The moment we awaken to their influence, their control begins to dissolve. So take a breath, open your mind, prepare to venture deeper into this radical vision of the cosmos, where illusion is exposed and the path to truth is revealed. Chapter 6. The Fire of Forbidden Knowledge. There exists a knowledge so powerful, so subversive, that it has been feared, suppressed, and hunted throughout history, is not mere intellectual understanding, nor is it faith in external doctrines. It is an awakening, a rupture in the veil of illusion, a force that tears apart the carefully constructed falsehoods that keep humanity blind to its divine nature. In Gnosticism, Gnosis is not acquired but remembered, a dormant flame buried beneath layers of conditioning, ready to ignite the moment one dares to seek beyond the limits imposed by the world. For the Gnostics, the material cosmos is not a place of enlightenment, but a prison, meticulously designed by the Demiurge and his Archons to ensnare the soul in ignorance. Every belief system, every societal norm, and every authority that claims to dictate the nature of reality serves as another layer of illusion. Gnosis is the key to dismantling this grand deception. It is not an external truth imparted by books or prophets, but an inner revelation, an unshackling of the mind, an unearthing of the forgotten self that exists beyond space, time, and control. Yet this knowledge has always been deemed dangerous, not only because it threatens the structures that uphold the world, but because it liberates the individual from dependence on them. Embarking on the path of Gnosis requires more than curiosity. It demands an unrelenting willingness to question everything one has been taught. The pursuit begins in introspection, in peeling away the layers of inherited beliefs and confronting the unsettling possibility that much of what we accept as reality is a fabrication. Political institutions, religious authorities, and cultural dogmas have long dictated the limits of human thought, shaping not only society, but the very perception of selfhood. These forces thrive on compliance, on the unspoken rule that truth must be mediated by external authorities. But Gnosis defies this. Its power lies precisely in its immediacy. It bypasses intermediaries, dismantles hierarchies, and shatters illusions, making it the greatest threat to any system built on control. This is why, throughout history, those who sought Gnosis were branded as heretics, mystics, or madmen. They did not accept reality as it was presented to them. They refused to submit to dogmas that required blind faith. Instead, they looked inward, uncovering a divine connection that required no validation from priests, rulers, or scholars. Gnosis does not ask for belief, it demands direct experience. It is a fire that consumes deception, leaving behind only what is real. But such an awakening is neither easy nor comfortable. The road to Gnosis is filled with resistance, not only from external forces but from within. The greatest barrier to Gnosis is the ego, that false self which clings to illusion as if its survival depends on it. The ego thrives on separation, convincing the individual that they are an isolated entity rather than a fragment of the infinite. It resists introspection, recoils from change, and wages war against anything that threatens its dominion. The Archons do not need to keep humanity imprisoned by force. They only need to manipulate the ego, keeping people ensnared in cycles of fear, desire, and self-importance. True Gnosis, then, is not just an intellectual realization, but a dismantling of the false self, a stripping away of everything that binds the soul to the illusion of the material cosmos. The deeper one delves into this knowledge, the more the world begins to appear as it truly is, a temporary construct, a stage designed to keep consciousness bound to fleeting concerns and superficial identities. Gnosis does not reject the material world, but places it in its proper context. The body, the senses, and the physical realm are not ends in themselves but instruments, tools that, when understood correctly, can be used for spiritual evolution rather than imprisonment. The mistake is not in engaging with the world, but in mistaking it for the ultimate reality. Forbidden knowledge is not dangerous because it is evil, but because it is liberating. It dismantles the very foundations upon which power is built. It calls into question the legitimacy of institutions that dictate truth, the necessity of fear as a means of control, and the very structure of the cosmos as a place of divine order. To embrace Gnosis is to step outside the carefully drawn boundaries of existence, to see not just with the eyes, but with the soul. It is to break free from the cycle of conditioned thought, and recognize that awakening is not something granted, it is something claimed. And so, the choice is presented. Remain within the comforts of illusion, or venture into the unknown, where truth is raw, untamed, and unmediated. Those who seek Gnosis do not do so lightly. They do so because something within them refuses to be caged. This is not an abstract concept, not a philosophical exercise, but a lived experience, one that once begun changes everything. Take a deep breath. Let go of certainty. Open your mind. What lies ahead is not merely knowledge, it is fire, and once it touches you, you will never be the same. Chapter 7. Breaking the Spell of Illusion. Awakening rarely arrives as a sudden revelation. More often, it begins as a quiet discomfort, a persistent sense that something in life feels incomplete, even when everything on the surface appears to be in place. It is that unshakable feeling of restlessness, of being trapped in routines and expectations that no longer make sense. Success, relationships, and material achievements may temporarily mask it, but they do not silence it. For the Gnostics, this unease is not a flaw to be corrected, nor a problem to be solved, but a sign that the soul is stirring from its slumber. It is the call of something deeper, an invitation to step beyond the carefully woven illusions of the material world and search for a truth that has always been there, hidden beneath layers of conditioning. This awakening is not a passive experience. It is a rupture, a breaking away from the version of reality that has been handed down through religious, cultural, and societal structures. The soul, once it begins to awaken, starts noticing signs that seem impossible to ignore. These signs appear in unexpected moments, meaningful coincidences, synchronicities that seem too precise to be random, dreams that feel more real than waking life, sudden insights that challenge everything once taken for granted. A book appears just when it is needed. A stranger speaks words that answer an unspoken question. A pattern emerges where before there was only chaos. The universe, previously silent, begins to whisper. To the Gnostics, these moments are not random. They are glimpses into a deeper reality, reminders that the material world is not the ultimate truth, but a veil covering something far greater. Mystical experiences, lucid dreams, and moments of profound intuition serve as doorways, allowing the soul to momentarily perceive what lies beyond the illusion. But awakening is not merely about experiencing these glimpses. It is about understanding them, integrating them, and allowing them to transform perception itself. The world does not change, but the way one sees it does. As this awakening deepens, everything once accepted as truth comes into question. The beliefs inherited from family, education, and religious institutions begin to unravel. The systems that shape human existence, political hierarchies, social norms, economic pursuits, are revealed as constructs, not unshakable realities. Even personal identity is no longer seen as fixed, but as something fluid, shaped by external forces that have dictated what is possible and what is not. This questioning is not an act of rebellion for its own sake. It is a necessary unraveling, a peeling away of the layers that have kept the soul confined to illusion. To awaken is to recognize that the walls of the prison were never real, only accepted. Yet the journey is not without its struggles. Awakening means facing uncomfortable truths and letting go of certainties that once provided stability. The mind, conditioned for so long to accept the material world as the only reality, resists. Doubt creeps in. Fear whispers that perhaps it is better to remain as before, to not challenge too much, to accept things as they are. But once the soul has glimpsed the illusion, it can never fully return to ignorance. Every step forward brings clarity, and with clarity comes a profound sense of liberation. Suffering, which once seemed like an obstacle, is now understood differently. It is not merely something to be avoided or endured, but a teacher. Pain shakes the soul from complacency, forcing it to seek answers beyond the superficial. Hardships become moments of transformation, breaking attachments and stripping away illusions. The more one resists suffering, the stronger its hold. The more one faces it with understanding, the more it becomes a gateway to liberation. The soul is not meant to remain comfortable within illusion, but to transcend it, to see suffering not as a punishment, but as a refining fire that clears the way for something greater. Another shift that occurs during awakening is a change in perception itself. The world, once seen through the narrow lens of the five senses, begins to reveal a hidden structure. There is an intuitive knowing that operates beyond logic and reason, an ability to recognize truth, not by external proof, but by a deep inner certainty. The artificial barriers between the material and the spiritual dissolve, making it clear that what is real cannot always be touched, measured, or explained. This newfound awareness does not separate one from the world, but connects everything in a way that was previously unseen. The ordinary becomes extraordinary, and the veil of separation between self and existence begins to lift. Yet awakening is not an escape from the material world. It is a redefinition of one's relationship with it. The physical world is not the enemy. It is a tool, an instrument, that can either imprison or serve as a path to higher understanding. To awaken is not to reject matter, but to see it for what it is, a temporary experience, not the ultimate reality. The awakened soul does not seek to flee life, but to live it with awareness, no longer blindly controlled by its illusions. There is a balance to be found, a way to walk between spirit and matter without being consumed by either. This journey is not a single moment of enlightenment, but an ongoing process, one that requires continual attention and care. The first revelations may feel life-changing, but the real work comes in applying them. Awareness alone is not enough. It must be lived, integrated into everyday choices and actions. The soul that awakens is not separate from the world but a force within it, contributing to a shift not only in personal understanding, but in the greater collective. By sharing knowledge, by embodying truth, the awakened become beacons for others still caught in the dream. The path is long, but each step taken toward truth is a step away from illusion. The awakening of the soul is not something to fear, nor is it a burden. It is an opportunity, an invitation to see, to know, to be free. Breathe deeply. Let go of what you think you know. Open your mind. What lies ahead is not just knowledge. It is the breaking of a spell, the reclaiming of a forgotten reality, the return to something that was never truly lost. Chapter 8. The Crucible of Awakening. The path to spiritual liberation is not a gentle unfolding, nor is it a road free of obstacles. It is a crucible, a refining fire in which the soul is tested, shaped, and transformed. To awaken is to invite disruption. It is to challenge the illusions that have long provided comfort, to step into uncertainty with no guarantee of what lies ahead. Every seeker, whether aware of it or not, embarks on this journey with the weight of conditioning pressing against them. The mind resists, the world opposes, and the ego fights to maintain its dominance. But these struggles are not misfortunes. They are necessary trials, placed before the seeker not as punishments, but as opportunities to break free from illusion. The first and perhaps most difficult test is resistance to change. The awakening often begins with a quiet unease, a sense that something about existence does not quite add up. Yet stepping beyond this feeling and truly seeking requires abandoning long-held certainties. The comfort of familiar beliefs becomes a heavy chain, and loosening it can feel like an act of self-betrayal. Doubt arises, fear takes hold, and the mind clings to what it has always known. It is in this moment that the seeker must choose, remain in the known world, or take the first uncertain steps toward truth. This is not a simple decision, for it demands courage. To unlearn is far harder than to learn, for it means stripping away identity itself. Beyond the initial resistance, the next challenge emerges: the confrontation with the ego. The ego, the great architect of illusion, is not eager to surrender its power. It thrives on control, on external validation, on the belief that it is the center of existence. As the seeker begins to unravel falsehoods, the ego retaliates, whispering warnings of failure, filling the mind with doubts, or cloaking itself in arrogance. It may even disguise itself as spiritual superiority, turning the pursuit of knowledge into another means of dominance. Gnostic wisdom does not advocate for the destruction of the ego, but for the ability to see it clearly, to recognize its illusions without being ensnared by them. It is only through this awareness that one can move beyond the self-imposed barriers that keep the soul bound to the material world. The external world, too, places its own obstacles in the way of those who seek truth. Society is not designed to foster awakening. It thrives on structure, conformity, and the maintenance of established narratives. Those who begin to see beyond these illusions often find themselves at odds with the world around them. Friends, family, and institutions resist change, reinforcing the idea that questioning is dangerous and that straying from the accepted path leads only to ruin. The seeker may face criticism, alienation, or even outright hostility. Yet these trials are reflections of the deeper internal struggle, manifestations of the old self resisting transformation. To stand firm in the face of societal opposition is to prove that the pursuit of truth is not a fleeting desire but a commitment that cannot be shaken by external forces. Perhaps the most insidious test of all is doubt. It is not the doubt that comes from questioning the external world, but the doubt that turns inward, making the seeker wonder if they have lost their way entirely. The journey is not a straight line. There are moments of revelation, but there are also stretches of darkness where the path seems to disappear. These moments are not failures, but purifications. Doubt forces the seeker to go deeper, to refine their understanding, to separate falsehood from truth with even greater precision. It is a storm, but one that clears the sky rather than obscuring it. Suffering, too, plays a central role in the trials of awakening. The material world is a place of impermanence, and pain is inescapable. Loss, betrayal, illness, and hardship, these are the experiences that test the soul's resilience. For the unawakened, suffering is something to be avoided or resented. But for the Gnostic, it is a sacred fire that burns away illusion. Each hardship strips the soul of attachment, forcing it to recognize what is fleeting and what is eternal. A body weakened by illness reminds the seeker that they are not merely flesh. A shattered relationship reveals the impermanence of human ties. Every moment of suffering contains within it a lesson, an opportunity to loosen the chains that keep the soul bound to the material realm. To embrace suffering with wisdom is not to seek it, but to allow it to transform rather than destroy. The tests of the path do not end with a final victory. There is no single moment where enlightenment is achieved and the journey is over. Awakening is not an event. It is a continuous unfolding. The first moments of revelation may feel like an arrival, but they are only the beginning. The real challenge lies in integration, in carrying this awareness into the fabric of daily life. Awakening is not an escape from the world, it is a new way of engaging with it. The material world does not cease to exist, nor does the body, nor do the responsibilities of existence. The task is to walk between these two realms, neither rejecting the physical nor becoming enslaved by it, but using it as a tool for spiritual evolution. The trials of the path serve a single purpose: to refine the soul, to strengthen it, to prepare it for its eventual return to the One. Each challenge is a step forward, even when it feels like a setback. Each hardship is a lesson, even when it feels like a punishment. Those who walk this path must remember that they are not alone. Others have walked it before, and others will walk it again. The journey is long, but the light at the end is real. And so as we move forward, let us not see these tests as barriers, but as necessary steps toward liberation. Let go of fear. Breathe deeply. Open your mind. What lies ahead is not easy, but it is worth everything. Chapter 9. The Return to Infinite Light. The journey of the soul is not an endless wandering, nor is it a meaningless cycle of birth, suffering, and death. At its core, the Gnostic path has always been leading to one inevitable destination: the return to the source, the final liberation from illusion, and the soul's reintegration into the boundless, eternal One. This is not merely an abstract spiritual concept or a fate reserved for a select few. It is the destiny of all beings, the moment when the fragmented self dissolves into the infinite, when separation is revealed as an illusion, and when the longing that has driven the seeker through countless trials is finally fulfilled. This ultimate liberation begins not with an external event, but with an internal realization. The soul does not become divine. It has always been divine. The barriers that once seemed insurmountable, the chains of the material world, the suffering and confusion, all of it has been nothing more than a veil drawn over the eternal truth. The recognition of this truth is not a matter of intellectual understanding, but of direct experience. It is Gnosis, the unfiltered, undeniable knowing that the soul was never truly lost, only dreaming of separation. Through this awakening, the layers of illusion that once defined existence begin to fade, revealing the reality that has been present all along. But the final ascent is not a passive return. It is a conscious crossing, a journey through the last remnants of illusion, a shedding of all that is still bound to the material world. Gnostic tradition speaks of the soul passing through the spheres of the cosmos, where it must confront the forces that have long held it captive. These forces, whether perceived as external Archons or as the lingering attachments within, are not true obstacles, but reflections of the last remnants of illusion still clinging to the self. Each level transcended is a final test, a final realization, a final surrender. The soul does not conquer these barriers, it dissolves them by recognizing that they were never real to begin with. And then at last comes the return. The moment of reintegration with the One is not a fading into oblivion, nor is it the annihilation of the self. It is an experience beyond words, a fusion with the divine light so complete that the very concept of individuality loses meaning. There is no longer a distinction between seeker and sought, between question and answer. The soul, once bound by time and space, by desire and fear, by identity and limitation, expands into infinity. The experience is not one of loss, but of becoming more, not the disappearance of being, but the realization of total unity. For the Gnostics, this return is not an escape from existence, but the fulfillment of its purpose. The suffering, the searching, the endless cycles of forgetting and remembering, all of it has led to this moment. The soul does not transcend merely for itself. Its liberation ripples outward, weakening the grip of illusion over the cosmos itself. Each being that awakens, that breaks free from the constructs of the Demiurge and his false reality, makes it easier for others to do the same. The return of one is the beginning of the return of all. The material world, once perceived as an inescapable prison, is revealed to be nothing more than a temporary passage, a place of learning, refining, and remembering. Yet even in final liberation, the journey does not truly end. The soul, though reunited with the source, does not vanish into nothingness. Its awareness, now expanded beyond all limitations, remains connected to existence itself. The Gnostics did not see transcendence as a static perfection, but as an ever-unfolding process of becoming. The return to the One is not the closing of a story, but the opening of a reality too vast for the limited mind to comprehend. Even in unity, the connection with other souls, with the great unfolding of the cosmos, continues. The journey may change form, but it never ceases. And so, the call remains. Final liberation is not an unreachable ideal, nor is it reserved for those who abandon the world entirely. It is a real possibility, a truth accessible to all who are willing to see through the veil of illusion. It is not a matter of waiting, but of seeking. Not a gift granted by an external force, but a realization awakened from within. The return has always been within reach. It has only ever required the courage to step beyond the dream. Breathe deeply. Let go of all that binds you. Open your mind and prepare to witness the truth that has always been waiting. Chapter 10. The Return of Forbidden Wisdom. Though Gnosticism arose in an ancient world of empires, secret sects, and religious upheaval, its message remains startlingly relevant in the modern age. Beneath the rapid acceleration of technology, the saturation of information, and the deep existential crises of contemporary life, Gnostic thought resurfaces like a forgotten key, a way to decode the illusions of the present and understand the forces that shape both individual consciousness and society as a whole. It is not merely an ancient philosophy, but a living framework, one that continues to inspire those who seek truth beyond the surface of mainstream narratives. In the realm of psychology, the influence of Gnosticism can be seen most clearly in the work of Carl Jung, whose exploration of the human psyche bears striking parallels to the Gnostic path. Jung's concept of individuation, the process of integrating the fragmented aspects of the self into a unified whole, mirrors the Gnostic quest for Gnosis, the realization that the divine spark within must be awakened and freed from illusion. His studies of the collective unconscious, archetypes, and the tension between the ego and the deeper self echo the Gnostic struggle against the Demiurge and the Archons. Rather than viewing these forces as mere myth, Jung recognized them as symbolic representations of internal struggles, showing how ancient spiritual insights could provide a path toward modern self-realization. His work not only revitalized interest in Gnosticism, but also demonstrated its power as a tool for understanding the human condition. Beyond psychology, Gnostic themes permeate popular culture, woven into the fabric of films, literature, and even video games. The idea that reality is an illusion, that hidden forces manipulate human perception, and that awakening requires a conscious break from control structures has become a dominant narrative in modern storytelling. The Wachowskis' The Matrix presents a vision of the material world as a fabricated prison, maintained by unseen forces to keep humanity in a state of ignorance, an unmistakable parallel to Gnostic teachings about the Demiurge's false reality. Similarly, novels like The Da Vinci Code explore the suppression of hidden knowledge by powerful institutions, mirroring the historical conflicts between Gnosticism and orthodox religious structures. These cultural echoes are not coincidences. They reveal a deep and enduring fascination with the Gnostic vision of liberation. Even as these ideas are repackaged for entertainment, they continue to provoke audiences to question their perceptions and search for deeper truths. While some encounter Gnosticism through philosophy or art, others find in it an alternative spiritual path. In an age where traditional religious institutions often struggle to provide personal meaning, many turn to Gnostic-inspired movements for a more direct experiential approach to spirituality. The rise of New Age thought, esoteric traditions, and neo-Gnostic groups reflects a hunger for knowledge that is not mediated by authority, but accessed through personal revelation. These modern interpretations may differ in form from ancient Gnostic sects, but their core remains the same: the belief that truth is not something to be accepted from external sources, but something to be discovered within. The emphasis on direct divine connection, the rejection of blind faith in favor of experiential wisdom, and the call to transcend the limitations imposed by the material world all stem from the same Gnostic impulse that has persisted for centuries. Gnostic teachings also offer a strikingly relevant lens through which to view contemporary power structures. The Archons, once seen as celestial jailers maintaining the Demiurge's illusion, can be understood in modern terms as the systems that shape and control human perception. Mass media, corporate empires, and political institutions exert an influence that extends beyond governance and into the very fabric of thought itself. The digital age, with its endless streams of information, algorithms shaping reality, and the illusion of choice within controlled structures, mirrors the Gnostic vision of a world where freedom is an illusion carefully maintained by unseen forces. To resist these modern Archons does not mean retreating from society, but developing the critical awareness necessary to see beyond programmed narratives and reclaim the ability to think and perceive independently. Yet Gnosticism is not merely a critique of external control, it is also a guide for personal transformation. The stresses of modern life, the sense of alienation, and the widespread feeling of disconnection are not unlike the soul's exile in the material cosmos described in Gnostic texts. The same wisdom that guided seekers through ancient struggles can serve as a roadmap for navigating the complexities of today's world. Recognizing the illusions that bind us, whether they take the form of material obsessions, fear-based ideologies, or internalized limitations, is the first step in breaking free. Gnosis, in its deepest sense, is the practice of seeing clearly, of identifying what is real and what is merely another layer of the cosmic deception. Rather than rejecting the material world entirely, the Gnostic perspective invites a balance between spirit and matter. It does not call for escape, but for mastery, the ability to use the material world as a tool for growth rather than a prison. This approach encourages living with purpose and awareness, embracing both physical and spiritual existence without becoming enslaved by either. The modern seeker, armed with this perspective, can engage with the world not as a passive participant, but as an awakened presence, capable of discerning illusion from truth and guiding others toward the same realization. Gnosticism is not a relic of the past, but a force that continues to challenge, inspire, and transform. Its lessons remain as urgent now as they were in ancient times, offering a path to liberation in an age of distraction, manipulation, and existential uncertainty. Whether approached through psychology, art, philosophy, or direct experience, its core message remains the same: awaken, see beyond the veil, and reclaim the knowledge that has been buried beneath centuries of illusion. This is not a philosophy to be passively studied. It is an invitation, a call to action, a reminder that true wisdom is not given but discovered. So take a breath. Look around you with fresh eyes. Question everything. The world is not as it seems, and the path to truth is waiting. Chapter 11. The book they tried to erase. In an age where information flows freely, where knowledge is available at the tap of a screen, something essential still feels missing. People are more connected than ever, yet they wander through life with a sense of emptiness, as if something vital has been buried beneath the noise of the modern world. The ancient Gnostics understood this feeling. They knew that the greatest truths are not found in the endless stream of external information, but in a deeper, more elusive realm, one that cannot be accessed through blind faith, passive learning, or social conformity. Their teachings, contained in the forbidden texts that were relentlessly suppressed, were not just doctrines but a roadmap to liberation, one that remains as relevant today as it was in the past. The reason Gnostic knowledge was banned was not because it was false, but because it was dangerous. It did not ask for obedience, it demanded awakening. It did not reinforce the power of institutions, it dismantled them. Instead of telling people what to believe, it urged them to seek truth on their own, to question, to challenge, to uncover what had been hidden. This is why religious and political authorities sought to erase it. Yet, despite centuries of suppression, its core message has never truly disappeared. It lingers in psychology, philosophy, art, and even the fabric of modern storytelling. It calls to those who feel the weight of the world's illusions pressing against them, those who know, deep down, that there is something more. This illegal wisdom reverberates throughout the world. In his investigation of the ego, Carl Jung, one of the most significant thinkers in contemporary psychology, drew extensively on Gnostic ideas. He perceived a clear resemblance between the root of Gnosis, or the realization of one's divine essence, and the process of individuation, or the reunification of the hidden, fractured portions of the mind. He saw that the main obstacles to spiritual development, the forces that prevent the soul from growing, are both internal and external systems of control. He referred to these forces as the shadow, or the suppressed parts of the self that need to be faced and changed. Therefore, the ancient conflict between the Demiurge and the Archons was not merely a myth. Rather, it was a very personal conflict that every human had to deal with on a personal level. Beyond psychology, Gnostic themes pervade popular culture in ways that most do not immediately recognize. Films, books, and media that depict hidden truths, reality as an illusion, and the struggle for enlightenment all carry the fingerprints of this ancient wisdom. The Matrix films, for example, offer a modern retelling of the Gnostic vision, where the world people perceive is nothing more than a fabricated prison, and true freedom lies in awakening to a deeper reality. The Da Vinci Code plays with the idea of hidden knowledge, suppressed truths, and secret societies, themes that have followed Gnosticism throughout history. Even video games and science fiction narratives, where protagonists break free from false realities and challenge oppressive systems, mirror the spiritual battle at the heart of Gnostic thought. These stories resonate because they reflect a truth that people instinctively feel but cannot always articulate, that the world is not as it seems and that there is something beyond the veil of everyday existence. But Gnosticism is not just an intellectual curiosity or a theme in storytelling. It is a practice, a way of seeing and navigating the world. In a time when traditional religious structures have lost much of their authority and when people search for meaning outside rigid doctrines, Gnostic teachings offer an alternative. They propose that spirituality is not about following external rules, but about direct, personal experience. The divine is not something distant or separate, but something already within, waiting to be remembered. This approach empowers the seeker, making them responsible for their own awakening rather than dependent on institutions or intermediaries. In a world that often demands conformity, this idea is revolutionary. It is not an easy path. It requires questioning everything, even one's own deepest assumptions, but it is a path that leads to true liberation. The modern world, with its overwhelming flow of information and invisible systems of control, mirrors the very illusions that Gnostic teachings warn against. The Archons of ancient texts, once seen as celestial beings enforcing ignorance, can now be recognized in the structures that shape contemporary reality: corporate monopolies that dictate choices, media algorithms that manipulate perception, and political systems that sustain illusions of freedom while maintaining control. Gnosticism does not simply invite passive awareness of these forces, it calls for active resistance. To be truly awake is to recognize how these forces operate, to see where they distort reality, and to reclaim the power to think, perceive, and act beyond their influence. Yet the battle is not only external. The greatest barriers to awakening are often internal: fear, doubt, and attachment to illusions that provide comfort. Gnosticism teaches that true liberation comes from within, through the ability to discern between what is real and what is merely a projection of falsehoods. The search for truth, then, is not about gathering more external knowledge, but about unlearning, about stripping away layers of deception until only the essential remains. This is why Gnostic knowledge was called forbidden, not because it was meant to be hidden, but because it reveals truths that many would rather not see. To embrace these teachings is to accept responsibility for one's own awakening. It means questioning not just society and its structures, but oneself. It means seeking not passive belief, but direct experience. It means recognizing that the journey toward truth is not something that can be given, but something that must be taken. And above all, it means understanding that knowledge, once truly seen, cannot be unseen. As we reach the end of this exploration, the real question is not whether Gnostic teachings remain relevant, but whether we are ready to engage with them. The book may be closing, but the journey is just beginning. The mystery is not something to be solved, it is something to be lived. The truth is not a distant concept, it is a fire waiting to be ignited within. Breathe deeply, open your mind. The forbidden book was never truly lost, it has always been here, waiting for those who dare to read between the lines.